Earlier this year, if you told me that Battlefield 5 was going to be in the top 10 Steam games being played during the holiday season 2023, I would have slapped you right in the face. Seriously, Battlefield 5 is just about as popular as it's ever been, and the FPS scene simply doesn't make sense to me anymore. Actually, it makes total sense. Battlefield 5 is on a 93% off Black Friday Cyber Monday sale right now. Basically, you can get the game for under $3, and you can even get 2042 for under $10, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 4, Battlefield 3, all for insanely low prices. Honestly, if you are missing any of these games in your lineup, now's an easy time to grab them. And Battlefield 5 in particular is such an interesting case because aside from 2042, it had arguably the worst launch of any of the Battlefield games in the franchise. I had to go back and rewatch my original review of Battlefield 5 just to see how I felt about it, and this clip kinda really summarizes my feelings of how the game was at launch. It's still a very good game that could easily become a great game, maybe even the best Battlefield game ever made. The gameplay is fun, it's addictive, it has jaw-dropping moments, and really draws players in together for some awesome teamwork. Even though many aspects feel rushed, the innovation is still there, and the gameplay meta has improved because of it, and the skill ceiling has also increased substantially. As a veteran player, I am very happy with most of what Battlefield 5 brings to the table, and I look forward to a far greater and further refined experience that we will get in the coming months. The main difference this time around is that instead of being fundamentally against DICE's design choices with gameplay as I was in Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5 just suffers from being a rushed game and the problems that come with it. Now that review was 23 minutes long, so of course I'm leaving out a lot of additional context. The game still missed many of the larger conflicts, but it managed to dial in gameplay to an extent where there isn't really anything else in the World War II genre that comes close to the fun factor, visuals, and accessibility of Battlefield 5. At this point, its biggest flaw is still just missing out on major conflicts, not having Russia as a faction or any Russian battles, no D-Day, Battle of the Bulge, Stalingrad, Berlin, etc. Though they did get Iwo Jima into the game in the last DLC, which hits hard. Battlefield 5's Pacific DLC is honestly up there as one of the best Battlefield DLCs ever, in my opinion. It's just fantastic across the board. And I gotta say, I often imagine if DICE operated more like an indie studio that could just, focus on their games that do well and keep making content for them, Battlefield 5 would be an epic candidate to make another DLC for. How exciting would it be to see a surprise DLC for Battlefield 5? Like, I know it's never gonna happen because DICE is DICE and they need to make the next big Battlefield game to maximize their profits, but the franchise is so big right now that between all of their top games on Steam alone, there's well over hundreds of thousands of people playing during peak hours. It would be awesome if they could somehow find a way to make good DLC that also brought in profits for their old games so that they could support them more and continue to grow out that content, especially since their player base is clearly spending their time in their older titles. Also, some updates to the anti-cheat wouldn't hurt either. With the games being so inexpensive and having another surge in popularity, well, the cheaters are back. Or I should say they never really left, they're just, again, a problem now that I'm hopping back into the game. I think the AAA studio making a new version of essentially the same game every few years will eventually run its course. Somehow Call of Duty is still chugging away at it, but I think maybe 5 to 10 years down the road, it could start to slow down a bit, and instead these games will focus on longevity and extending their content. Of course, it's incredibly hard to predict the future of gaming in 5 to 10 years. Everything could be completely different. Now, one of the cooler things about coming back to Battlefield 5 again is that the game just still looks fantastic, and now it runs so much better than I remember during launch. In part because when it launched I had a 20 series GPU and now I have a 40 series GPU, but also the game has been significantly optimized by then, and the visuals still hold up so well, as honestly it's still one of the best looking FPS games out today. The atmospheric sound design, particle effects, destruction, they all hit hard and make what many would say is one of the most atmospheric Battlefield games ever. I'd say BF1 is right up there with it, but Battlefield 5's lighting and shaders are on another level, while Battlefield 1 kind of brings a bit more in the style department. BF5 also excels at the destruction, especially on maps with buildings. It's a refreshing change if you've been playing a lot of 2042 lately and only seeing the limited destruction available in that title. In my opinion, DICE has to bring destruction back for the next titles in a major way. It's become such a core element of the franchise over the past 12 plus years, and to see them kind of forget about it with the latest title really hurts. It should be a foundational feature of the franchise. Just as having different classes makes a Battlefield game, so should a deep destruction system. Also, Battlefield 5 did one of the things that I love most about any sort of modern Battlefield title, and that's remaking classic maps, but in cool, interesting ways. Their version of Underground, aka Operation Metro, was a massive improvement over the original map in my opinion. Sure, it's a pretty big change from the original map in many regards, but it's so much more fun to play on. The visuals are completely different. The large plaza area is a completely different experience from what it was before. It's just a really fun way to take an old style map that you know is going to work for the most part and then fix everything that didn't quite work as well the first time around and update the visuals. Same with Wake Island. Wake Island is one of the older, more classic maps of the Battlefield franchise, and frankly, if you look at Battlefield 1942, the gameplay on it was slow, kind of cumbersome. There weren't a lot of good ways to get around the island quickly, and it kind of messed with the gameplay flow. In Battlefield 5, they've really fixed a lot of those problems. They've changed the sizing, the way that the layouts work, the height differential on the island, the visuals are fantastic, and it's just so much more fun to play on now. Not only is it my favorite remake of Wake Island in the franchise's history, but it's probably one of my favorite maps in Battlefield 5. It's a ton of fun on Breakthrough, it's a ton of fun on Conquest. You can be a great pilot, you can be a great infantry player, you can even get in tanks. It all plays really well on this map. Now, because of the sale, the greater player base is also massive, with 2042 clocking in at 50,000 players at peak hours, and even Battlefield 1 seeing a really impressive surge past 30,000 players at peak. 3 Battlefield games firmly in the top 50 games on Steam when at peak hours is an impressive metric. Are you guys picking up any of these titles while they're on sale? I'd be really curious to hear the impressions of somebody playing these games for the first time who maybe missed out on them during their heyday. It's certainly easy to come back in a Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1 now and find fully loaded servers and people getting into the game for the first time. You can kind of re-experience the launch experience all over again, except without all the crazy bugs that comes with it. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a like, consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell to beat that YouTube algorithm with me. Next up, check out this video on the best looking video games ever made at 4K. Battlefield 5 is one of them. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.